What if the biggest opportunity in crypto always arrives when most people believe it's over? Think about what is happening in the market right now. Fear is everywhere. Some exchanges are shutting down, negative headlines are coming back, and many retail investors are starting to lose confidence and leave the market. But here's what's interesting. We've seen this kind of environment before, and the last time the market entered a period of extreme fear like this, it eventually led to one of the biggest bull markets in crypto history. So the real question is, are we watching history repeat itself? To understand what could be happening today, we need to go back to 2018, because after the massive crypto crash, Bitcoin lost more than 80% of its value, billions of dollars disappeared, and almost all of the excitement that had surrounded crypto was gone. Most people believed that cryptocurrencies were nothing more than a failed experiment, and news headlines were constantly declaring that Bitcoin was dead. Investors who had bought during the previous bull market were selling at huge losses, and many of them never came back. At the same time, the crypto industry itself was struggling to survive, with companies and exchanges facing serious problems. One of the most notable examples was Cryptopia, once one of New Zealand's largest crypto exchanges, which entered liquidation after suffering a devastating hack in 2019. Then there was QuadraGasCX, which had been one of Canada's biggest crypto exchanges. After its founder suddenly died, customers were unable to access their funds, and more than $190 million became inaccessible. At the same time, hundreds of ICO projects collapsed after raising billions of dollars, leaving investors with worthless tokens and almost no hope of recovering their money. For many people, the conclusion seemed obvious: crypto was finished. But while retail investors were running away from the market, something very different was beginning to happen behind the scenes. Institutional money was slowly entering the space, and some major companies were starting to look at Bitcoin in a completely different way. In August 2020, MicroStrategy made history when it announced that it was buying Bitcoin as a treasury asset. At the time, many people laughed at the decision and questioned why a publicly traded company would put so much money into an asset that had already experienced such extreme crashes. But MicroStrategy was not alone for long. Months later, Square, now known as Block, also invested in Bitcoin, showing that the idea of companies holding Bitcoin on their balance sheets was becoming more accepted. Then came one of the biggest moments in crypto history. In February 2021, Tesla announced that it had invested $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, and suddenly the conversation around cryptocurrencies changed dramatically. At around the same time, PayPal opened cryptocurrency trading to millions of users, making it easier for ordinary people to buy and sell digital assets through a platform they already knew and trusted. The narrative changed almost overnight. The fear that had dominated the market slowly turned into excitement, excitement turned into FOMO, and Bitcoin eventually climbed to new all-time highs as more investors rushed back into the market. Now fast forward to today, and once again we are seeing an environment filled with uncertainty. Investors are nervous, many people believe that the bull market is over, and some crypto exchanges have announced that they are shutting down or ending their operations. One example is BitMEX, which announced plans to end its operations after years in the industry, while several smaller platforms have also exited certain markets as regulatory pressure continues to increase. Once again, social media is filled with fear, negative headlines are attracting attention, many investors are selling, and others are choosing to stay on the sidelines until they have more confidence about where the market is going. And this is where the comparison becomes interesting, because the emotional environment looks familiar. Before the massive crypto bull run of 2020 and 2021, investors were also dealing with fear, uncertainty, failed companies, disappearing projects, negative headlines, and a market that many people believed was never going to recover. But before we jump to the conclusion that another massive bull run is guaranteed, there is one very important difference we need to understand. Today's market is not the same as the market we saw in 2020. Interest rates are higher, governments have introduced much stronger crypto regulations, institutional participation has changed the structure of the market, and global economic conditions are very different from what they were during the early stages of the previous bull run. So no, history does not repeat itself exactly, and the fact that some events look similar does not mean Bitcoin or the wider crypto market must follow the same path. However, financial markets often move in cycles, and one pattern appears again and again. Fear is followed by capitulation. Capitulation can be followed by recovery. Recovery creates optimism, and optimism can eventually turn into euphoria. We have seen this pattern across different markets throughout financial history, and crypto is no exception. So could crypto surprise everyone again? Absolutely possible. Could this cycle be completely different from the last one? That's also possible. Nobody knows exactly what will happen next, and anyone who tells you that a new bull run is guaranteed is making a prediction, not stating a fact. But there is one thing worth remembering: the moments when almost everyone is afraid have often been the moments that deserve the closest attention. Not because fear guarantees profits, and not because every crash is followed by a massive rally, but because major changes in market sentiment often begin when the majority of investors have already lost confidence. And that brings us to the real question. Are we watching the early stages of another major crypto cycle, or are the similarities we're seeing today simply a coincidence? Is history beginning to rhyme once again, or is this time truly different? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into the history, cycles, and major developments shaping the crypto market.